Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and welcome back to my second part of how to create a Chrono Trigger inventory system in Unity 5.6 in that particular case. If you want to use any older, newer versions, make sure that you use at least 4.6 since I'm going to use the new canvas system. Okay, the last part we were creating the equipment panel, the options panel, and the inventory panel, so we can actually fill in data we're gonna need for informations, and of course we can set up the base of all that informations depending and according to whatever our needs are. Okay, so let's start with implementing some text fields so we actually know all of the fields and the positions of what our informations are needed. And first I'm gonna go and disable the inventory panel, or actually just make this one inactive so we can fiddle around with the options panel at first. So what you can see, we're gonna have those two panels which are representing basically whatever the option is we're gonna land in and currently, or what we gonna be able to select. I want to use my finger later on over that information and over all that buttons. Later on you might have some more options inside of that to navigate through. So we have a lot of possibilities to do so. We can actually use the transform of the image components or panels in here as well, and use an offset where we want to offset the finger to that position and just use the clear positions for those, which might not always be the best choice. Another way might be that we're gonna use some kind of transformation points directly inside the options field, which we can pass the finger to and line it up onto that points. Those can be anything like empty game objects or whatever, so we can actually align them and use them to manipulate the position of the finger. We can also use them directly as children of the equip and the inventory one, and we're gonna pass those later on inside of a list. However, let's do some a bit more stuff. What you can do is, in the graphic side, what you can now do is we can actually put in some text or anything which is leading us into the correct direction, which means when we have that particular text field inside that image, which is telling us, hey, this is going to be whatever about the characters or the equip part. So we can use an E for equipment. We can just type in equip, and we can also do anything else. We can also use images instead of just that text. I just want to have something visualizing what this panel or this particular option field is going to be about. Okay, so what I want to use is a best fit, and I want to make sure that I use a super black or super white color in here so we can see this one better later on also in our game field. Okay, so this is children now of the equip button in here, so I'm gonna duplicate this text field pretty quick and drag this into our inventory part in here. Also make sure that I line this one up to this, and I just name this one INV. If you have shortened names or something like that, you might want to go in and center this the text directly inside the text field. Also, when we are pressing play now, we want to make sure that everything stays aligned, looks good. And once again, we can always go in and check if 16:9 or 16:10 is changing anything in total. As you can see, it is going to be stretched in the outline, but the inner part is actually staying at the same size and position. If you're going to free aspect mode, you should be able to see that there's actually no big stretching at all. We might want to go in and change this one later on as well. Currently we're gonna stay with that fixed values in here. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, so now let's set up our finger. Our finger needs to be inside the canvas as well, otherwise it's not rendered, but we need two different fingers in this case, and an option where we are able to switch in between wherever we currently are with that particular finger. So what I want to do is at first I drag in one finger inside the canvas. Usually it should be automatically of type sprite renderer. If you don't like that to be a sprite renderer, you can also delete this one, and you can use UI image. So as you can see, the image is automatically overlaying and we don't need to fiddle around with the sprites and stuff, and we just drag in the corresponding sprite, finger in this case, into our menu. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I preserve the aspect ratio of the finger, and I rotate this by 90 degrees to the downside. When you're doing that, hold down the shift key so you will have some ankle snapping, so it can automatically go pretty straightforward down. Also, holding down shift can scale this over the corners to the corresponding to whatever the sprite size you want to have. The next one is a decision you need to do on your own. Where do you want to have the finger? Do you actually want to use the finger, or do you want not? According to this, you're gonna have to change the system later on anyways. So I'm gonna use the finger since I find this one a bit more appealing than just having a lightened up panel in here, but you can also go in later on and use light panels. Or actually tint the panels if they are a selected panel or not. Okay, so I'm gonna rename this finger now to vertical finger, since we're gonna have a horizontal finger later on as well. And the horizontal finger is used in the inventory system. So what we want to have now is, I'm gonna leave that finger for now in here. I'm gonna enable the inventory panel. We're gonna ignore that finger. We can also go in and pass this to any point we want later on. But what I want to do is I want to duplicate the vertical finger and make this one a horizontal finger. I'm gonna duplicate this because I want to keep the same size and don't want to do the whole work once again. And I hold down shift now and rotate this one to this. So I can also go in and pass this to whatever the items or the options inside that particular menu are in. And later on, of course, I want to make sure that is at least fitting inside one of the item slots as well. If the item slots are going to be too small or the finger is going to be too big, you might want to change, well, whatever is needed. However, in the top of the vertical, we're gonna have the options panel, and I want to have two more text elements and maybe another image element, which is describing what we are after, or actually what the menu stuff is about. Going back to my setup in here, which I just copied or actually reproduced from the original one, is I want to have maybe an icon in the top left later on, or maybe some kind of text so the player knows, okay, he is in the inventory system, if you just don't remember whatever and why ever. We want to have some text element which is calling or saying, hey, this is a use and order option and this is the organize option. And also we want to have some random text for now in here for the information about whatever the current selected item or overlaying item is going to be about, or actually the data which is written directly inside the item. Okay, so let's set this one up at first. The options panel needs to have the text element at first. Gonna use white text once again. So gonna choose white. I want to make use of a best fit, so it's always fitting to wherever we want. And this is going to be use/order. So we are able later on to order the items directly inside of here with some kind of blinking cursor. Also, we can go in and reduce or increase the size to whatever we need. And we can also go in and use later on our own fonts. And we can make this one bold to, well, maybe make this more looking like an option. I'm gonna center this one. And the other one is gonna duplicate that pretty quick and drag this one over if it lets me. Maybe to this position, and I just rename this one to organize. Maybe we want to shrink this one a bit down as well. Well, actually just so that the pivot point is more centered in this way. Once again, if you like to have the finger showing or leading directly to that, like this, you might want to go in and shrink maybe the finger graphic a bit down. I believe I'm gonna do that a bit, so it's maybe looking a bit better. And also later on in my item slot, when I'm going to use that particular finger inside of that, it's maybe fitting more and looks more appealing. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure where I want to have this, but I can always go in and change all that positions where I want to have the order and the organized positions at any point I want. Okay, so what we want to do is, or I want to use, I believe I'm gonna use some transforms directly inside the, or empty game objects directly in the options panel, without any scaling or anything else. So I don't select anything, create an empty game object, and now I drag this one into the options panel. As you can see, it has no transform at all, and we are not able to see anything when we are selecting this game object. So what we can use is maybe some overlay, but this is not working properly, it seems, since it is overwritten by the canvas. So I believe we're gonna delete that and use just an actual UI, well, no, a create empty, so we're gonna see the complete object in here. I want to just shrink this one down. Okay, so since the pivot point of my finger is going to be here, I need to make sure that my empty game object is going to be about the same. So once again, we later on are able to reorganize all of the panels and all of the game object anyways. I believe to see this one better, we are not able to use that points in here or that little markers. Nope, we are not. So instead, I believe we still go in and use an image component, which is just a blank one, which is just showing us that there's some white field. Again, we can scale this one up and down to whatever we please and like, and put this image to wherever our transform might later on going to be. I'm gonna drag the horizontal finger a bit away so I can see, okay, this is a transform for my use order. Gonna duplicate this, and I can drag this one over to the other side. By holding down the shift key, you're gonna stay in the same line wherever the other one has been. And then we have the two transforms for this. So this is going to be use order transform, or use order option. Okay, and this one is going to be our organize option. Naming convention later on is pretty much important, so make sure you organize everything. And we want to make sure that they are part of our organized panel, so when I just drag this one around, they will follow as well. Which means also when we go to maximize on play, that they will stay at the same position, that when we later on move the finger around, the finger is always going to snap to that positions and that points, and they will not change, and we will not have any problems with that. Okay, so depending on what the options we're gonna have later on, once again, are selected, and depending on whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna show the infos directly in the second panel here. We can go into the info panel. We're gonna create a new text component in here, and we can drag this one to wherever and however we like. Of course, it cannot be bigger than the actual panel. We might want to do that to the left, or align that to the left, but center this one out, and we're gonna use best fit, and of course a white color so we can see this one better. And this is basically nothing else than just infos about items, and all of the infos will land in later on depending if we have selected those or not. Okay, let's go to our item panel. The item panel, they basically does not need any change. We're gonna have the space already, and we have our item holder. So let's design or make use of our item holder. So the item holder basically needs all the information about the items. So at first, since we only or almost only use text elements, we're gonna need to fill up all the data inside of that. So we create a new UI text. Depending on how the color of the background is going to be, that's again another decision you have to make. You want to tint the text as well, or the text values. I believe I go and choose a darker gray, maybe, so it's seen better and maybe aligns better inside or matches my my design. But at the same time, of course, I want to make sure that the item name or texts and so on are going to be white. Again, I increase the text size by using best fit. I align this to the left and to the center of the text field. And I maybe put this one onto this. And I just rename this one to be the type. So in here, we will later on see what kind of type this item is going to be about. I'm gonna copy this text element once again. And of course, you can rename this to be the type text. I'm gonna duplicate this, and I put this one maybe to the center point or somewhere close to the center point maybe. And this is going to be just a number, and the number is basically the amount of items we currently have. Looking back in here, as you can see, here's the type, here's the number, here's going to be the name, and of course an icon if we like to later on as well, which is basically not just representing the item as in its own, but the type of the item we're gonna be equipping inside. Okay, so this is going to be the amount text. Again, naming convention is always helpful, so do not miss that. And what we also want to have is maybe the name on that point until here. So the name of the item. And once it's hitting the left part in here, it's automatically shrinking down or growing up to its maximum depending on this. And what we also want to have is one of those transformation points as well. So I'm gonna go in and duplicate this, drag this one into my item holder, and gonna rename this one to item select point or something like that. And of course, I want to make sure that I align this to the x-axis and to the y-axis to 0 at first, and an x, we're gonna change that point to somewhere here, where our finger later on is going to be to show us what the current selected item is. So when the transform of the finger is going to match the transform of this, it's going to be showing directly to the item name, and we will see and know that this is a selected item in any case. Okay, same for the image. If you want to have that particular image, of course, feel free to add this one. Currently, I'm gonna put a placeholder in this one. So again, this is going to represent just some kind of weapon or equipment type, like, okay, this is an armor, then there will be an armor image. If it is a consumable, then there might be a consumable image. Well, we're gonna later on decide if we want to use that or even not. Okay, so we have now all the fingers we're gonna need in here. We have the positions where the fingers are going to be in the inventory system, and when we activate this option, it will automatically go down into the item list. So far so good. We also need to make sure that we update the spacer and the item holder depending on what we later on want to do with them. And I want to place them in some kind of grid at first. So the spacer basically is just going to be the mask for all the stuff. But I want to have another extra empty game object in this case, or item or image, which is masking this one away, and the grid, which is currently the spacer, which is making sure that the items are going to be in the correct space actually. So with item holder selected, I want to add a layout group or a layout element. In this case, I want to make sure that I believe the preferred width is going to be activated. And I believe the flexible height needs to be activated as well. If not, we're gonna change this one in a moment. What I also want to do is I want to create a new folder in here, in my assets folder, and create or rename this one to prefabs, so I can actually create prefabs and put them directly inside of that. If you have a prefabs folder, make sure you're gonna maybe use an inventory subfolder inside of the prefabs folder, so you know, okay, this is all about the inventory. Same for the textures. You can always go in, if you don't have one, or sprites, and put in the sprites directly, or the textures directly in the textures folder. Same for the prefabs, we're gonna put in the prefabs. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take my item holder in here and make a prefab out of it. Somehow it seems that it is, well, no, everything seems to be okay for now. So I'm gonna take the item holder and put this into my prefabs folder, so everything is actually saved, and when I have a change inside the item holder, I can always go in and manipulate all of that stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna put away the item holder for now. From that, I want to manipulate the spacer for now. So the spacer, I want to have an extra or another image component as parent of the spacer object. I want to drag this one inside the corner in here, or basically I can just make sure that I stretch this one over the complete part, or over the complete item panel, by holding down Alt and Shift at the same time, and choose the bottom right option in here. But what I also want to make sure is that I'm not interfering the border once again, so I just make this one a bit smaller in here and there. If you want to have later on any specific pieces as well in the inventory, make sure you add them to your needs. Okay, that means when we now go to any other aspect ratio, this white field currently will always stay wherever it currently is. So when we scroll this one down or up and so on and so forth, you can see it will automatically fit into that. Okay, going back to 16:9, I want to have my spacer being child of that current image one. I'm gonna call this one maybe ScrollRect. Oh, somehow I have ScrollRect. Okay, this is going to be maybe, or actually it's going to be in the mask and the ScrollRect later on when we are scrolling through all the stuff we're gonna have. Okay, the spacer currently is going to be a spacer or grid item which is laying out all of the informations automatically for us. So the first one we want to have is a content size fitter, which is actually fitting everything vertically if we tell it to be. In this case, I believe it's going to be set to preferred size. So currently it's going to be super thin, and the height is going to be 0, as you can see automatically. So once we put stuff inside the spacer, like our item holder, it will automatically shrink or increase and decrease its own size. Okay. So what we also want to do is we want to add a vertical layout group, which is laying out all the child elements automatically vertically, so we don't need to take care of this one, and we want to have them into the upper left corner as a child alignment, and I maybe want to add a spacing in between those of maybe 1 or 2 pixels. If that is too much, of course we can keep this one at 0. Actually, it doesn't really matter since we loop through all the items later on anyways, and the positions are going to be fixed. Okay, putting the item holder now in the spacer should automatically, well, ruin everything. Since our spacer is automatically too small at this particular case, so we need to increase the width back to wherever it has to be. Or has been in. So in this case it's going to be this width needs to be this width. Okay, so pass over the preferred width automatically back into that and apply the changes once again to the prefab. So when we now duplicate this spacer object, as you can see, it will automatically fit inside our field in here, and of course it's overlaying. And the same one is the spacer is automatically increasing its size as well, since we have the content size fitter, which is vertically fitting every item inside. The downside now is it is not aligning to the top left corner, which it should. So we're gonna have to go inside that and choose another anchor point. In this case, we're gonna need to choose the top right while holding down, I believe, Alt and Shift at the same time. And boom, what you can see now, the list is aligning to the top left, which is actually the ScrollRect information in the top left at that point. And the spacer now is going to hold all the data for us automatically. So when we place the first item inside, it will automatically be in the top left. If you want to have later on empty fields, of course, you can always go in and just empty everything out. But for now, we just wanted to have a system which is automatically be able to fill in all the informations of items we're gonna have currently and put them inside the list. And once again, when we are in the ScrollRect, we are able to mask out everything which is over or underlaying. That means when we're gonna add a mask at that point and we're gonna pass in once again a lot more items, you can see everything which is overlaying is automatically going to be masked out and invisible. Even if we would go and later on scroll through all of that stuff, everything which is over or underlying or left or right is going to be automatically away. Okay, so we have all the items now, or the item holders. We can actually get rid of them now, and we can also go into the color of the image and reduce the alpha to 1. Do not make it to 0, otherwise the mask is not working. So when you have this one to 0, once again, you are not able to use mask. Since this is reacting to the alpha. I'm gonna show you this one in the ScrollRect. When we go to 0, all the items inside are invisible. So this needs to be at least 1 for the mask to be working. Okay, if you are happy or unhappy with the result, of course, tweak the stuff inside. Okay, so the last part I believe we're gonna do inside the equipment panel. So we're gonna disable the inventory panel for a moment, and what we want to set up as well is some connection points for the options we're gonna have in here. So our vertical finger is later on snapping to that particular buttons. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually create or duplicate this one. I put this one inside the in the panel in here. I believe I need to go and put this at the very bottom. And of course, as you can see, we need to make sure that we drag this one wherever our finger later on is going to be. I put the vertical finger, I don't know, somewhere different. So we are able to align and set up the correct point for the correct options. And of course, we want to make sure that we're gonna make this one under the panel as equip select. And in here, we're gonna create or duplicate equip select, put this in inventory and rename this to invent select. We can put this one in the local space of that item at the same position as we're gonna have done in here for the equip one. As you can see, we're gonna have a local position of -7.4. You can go in and round those up, and the same for this one. I want to make sure that this one is a -7.4 as well, so the offset is going to stay the same for both items or both positions in here. Okay, don't forget to save all your work. I'm gonna call this one maybe inventory or something like that, or demo or scene. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumbs this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.